Now we're going to watch some clips just of Yang and react to them.
Mr. Yang.
Sure. Thank you,
Mr. Yang, you've made a virtue of your outsider status. You've never served in the military or in government. What has prepared you to respond to a terrorist attack or a major disaster?
Well, first, I just want to stick up for Tom. We have a broken campaign finance system, but Tom's been spending his own money fighting climate change. And you can't knock someone for having money and spending it in the right way, in my opinion.
Thanks, Andrew.
No problem. As Commander-in-Chief, I think we need to be focused on the real threats of the 21st century. And what are those threats? Climate change, artificial intelligence, loose nuclear material, military drones, and non-state actors. And if you look up, we're in the process of potentially losing the AI arms race to China right now because they have more access to more data than we do, and their government is putting billions of dollars to work subsidizing the development of AI in a way that we are not. We are 24 years behind on technology. And I can say that with authority because we got rid of the Office of Technology Assessment in 1995. Think about that timing. I guess they thought they'd invented everything. The next Commander-in-Chief has to be focused on the true threats of tomorrow, and that's what I will bring to the table as Commander-in-Chief.
All right, so that was Yang's first answer. I thought couple things stood out to me. I love the banter between him and Tom Steyer.
Yeah.
I thought maybe Tom Steyer will end up endorsing and putting some of that hundreds of millions of dollars to work for the Yang gang. And then secondly, I thought Yang's answer was very organized and calm and thoughtful and visionary and also just very insightful. What did you think?
Yeah, I think the same. I think his vision, he's like, first we got rid of this.
The Office of Technology. Yeah. Crazy.
Like,
can you imagine? Why would a country think it doesn't need to understand technology
anymore.
In 95? Yeah, right before the internet revolution as well. Maybe they were saying, oh, government shouldn't have a role to play in technology, but you look at what he makes a good point about what China is doing with artificial intelligence. The Chinese government is absolutely clearing the way. They're going gaga over it. Yeah, they're clearing the way for their private companies to move faster than we are. And I'm not saying that the American government should do the same thing as the Chinese government, that's for sure. But the American government should start thinking about what is our country's technology strategy.
Yeah.
And what are in the national interests of the country, so we don't just let the private sector do it completely alone and assume that they're going to do the right thing for the country's interests all the time.
There are many examples of technology from just using your legs. Now we go to space. We go to space in rockets, dock with the ISS. We're in space. Like in 1999, we only had the space shuttle.
Yes.
But like if that was before anything, like before 1962.
Apollo, that was a government program. Space shuttle, that was a government program. So sometimes government has a role to play. The internet was a government research project. So the government does have a role to play. And I think Yang's right that we should probably reinstate the Office of Technology in the federal government. Okay, now let's continue to his next answer.
All right.
That don't have paid family leave for new moms, the United States of America and Papua New Guinea. That is the entire list, and we need to get off this list as soon as possible. I would pass paid family leave as one of the first things we do. I have 2 kids myself who are 4 and 7, one of whom is autistic and has special needs, and it's breaking families' backs. We need to start supporting our kids and families from the beginning, because by the time they're showing up to pre-K and kindergarten, in many cases they're already years behind. Studies have shown that 2/3 of our kids' educational outcomes are determined by what's happening to them at home. This is stress levels, number of words read to them as children, type of neighborhood, whether a parent has time to spend with them. So we need to have a freedom dividend in place from day one, $1,000 a month for every American adult, which would put, in many cases, $2,000 a month into families' pockets so that they can either pay for childcare or, if they want, stay home with the child. We should not be pushing everyone to leave the home and go to the workforce. Many parents see that trade-off and say if they leave the home and work, they're going to be spending all the money on childcare anyway. In many cases, it'd be better if the parent stays home with the child.
There he's talking about the importance of childcare and how paid parent leave is something that most advanced countries offer, but the US and Papua New Guinea are on a list where we don't. And we should get off that list, which I thought was a funny line.
Yeah.
I will also, just so we're not like completely in the tank for Yang, I thought that towards the end of his answer, he kind of like looked like he was running out of air. And it wasn't a strong closing, but it was a good answer. It was a solid answer. Yeah. And I think it was nice that he talked about how he's a father and he has 2 kids. Because a lot of the other candidates, they're like grandparents, so they may not be as close to what families are facing today, because when they were raising their kids, America was very different.
Mr. Yang, if you win the 2020 election, what would you say in your first call with Russian President Vladimir Putin?
That's a fun moment. Well, first I'd say, I'm sorry I beat your guy. Or not sorry.
Not sorry.
And second, I would say the days of meddling in American elections are over, and we will take any undermining of our democratic processes as an act of hostility and aggression. The American people would back me on this. We know that they've found an underbelly and they've been clawing at it, and it's made it so that we can't even trust our own democracy. The third thing I would say is that we're going to live up to our international commitments. We're going to recommit to our partnerships and alliances, including NATO. And it was James Mattis that said that the more you invest in diplomats and diplomacy, the less you have to spend on ammunition. That has to be the path forward to help build an international consensus, not just against Russia, but also to build a coalition that will help us put pressure on China in terms of their treatment of their ethnic minorities and what's going on in Hong Kong. I want to propose a new world data organization, like a WTO for data, because right now, unfortunately, we're living in a world where data is the new oil and we don't have our arms around it. These are the ways that we'll actually get Russia to the table and make it so they have to join the international community and stop resisting appeals to the world order.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. Rachel.
I think that was a bit more strongly. At the beginning, he said, I'm sorry I beat your guy.
The other thing, though, is that Yang really talked about the importance of data.
Yeah.
And you wonder, like, what do you think Warren, Sanders, and Biden think about it? And I think they have no idea about the value and importance and risks around how we as a society treat data and how we need to protect it. And just as importantly, who owns it and who should profit from it. So I thought that Yang talking about the data and a data World Trade Organization, I think these are the kinds of ideas that you need for your president to lead us into the future versus a president that just wants to bring us back into the past.
Yeah. We can't just stay or go to the past. We need to keep going forward.
Right. So as an American citizen born in Seattle, what kind of president do you want?
I want a president who will give health care for all, improve on technology, optimistic, truthful, honest, and who always keeps going forward no matter what, brave, never gives up, resilient.
Wow.
That's the type of president I would want.
And who do you think is the best candidate that will meet your requirements?
I think Andrew Yang
Yes.
would be the first. Trump was like absolutely the opposite. Like people even like, who do you want a president who even people even want him to go to court for criminal offenses after he's president.
Who is the opposite of Donald Trump?
Andrew Yang.
That's right, brother. That's right. All right, let's see the next answer.
Mr. Yang, what would you do about the issue of white supremacist violence?
Well, first we have to designate white supremacist terrorism as domestic terrorism so that the Department of Justice can properly measure it. I talked to an anti-hate activist named Christian Picciolini who told me about how he was radicalized over a 10-year period. He said he was a lonely 14-year-old and that he was reached out to by a hate group, and he wound up joining it for a decade. Now he's out and he's helping convert people out of those hate groups and back into the rest of society. But what he told me was that if anyone had reached out to him when he was that hurt, broken 14-year-old boy, he would have gone with them. He said if it had been a coach, I would have gone with him. If it had been a mentor or teacher, I would have gone with them. But instead it was a hate group. So what we have to do is we have to get into the roots of our communities and create paths forward for men in particular who right now are falling through the cracks. And when you look at gun violence in this country, 96+% of the shooters we're talking about are young boys and young men. We have to, as a country, start finding ways to turn our boys into healthy, strong young men who do not hate, but instead feel like they have paths forward in today's economy. I'm here with my wife.
So I think that was also very interesting. He's like, we gotta fight against terrorism. Like some people get attracted into terrorism, but those are people who want revenge.
Yeah.
People who are left out. People who are bullied. People who are kicked out of everything. Those people who are badly treated at school, your child, usually don't become good people when they grow up.
I also think what's interesting about this clip is that Yang is uniquely comfortable speaking about issues that relate to boys and men.
Yeah.
And in a way, much of the plight of women is at the hand of men who have gone wayward and aren't able to process what they're going through, and then they take it out on other people, oftentimes women in their lives. It's actually one of the less covered topics, but when you look at the shootings, like they're not often done by women.
Yeah.
Right? They're often done by frustrated young men who feel like you were saying excluded, ostracized, frustrated, hurt, looking for a way out, for a way to feel powerful, like wanting to lash out and revenge. And we need to figure this out. And I don't see Biden or Warren or Harris or Bernie talking about this.
Yeah, because it's really important. Some of the bullied kids at school become like very bad people when they grow up.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like usually the most reasons for criminals, their backstory is being bullied when they're young.
Could be. I would not be surprised. All right, let's go to I think this might be his closing statement.
Wife Evelyn, tonight we have two young boys, Christopher and Damien. How many of you all are parents like us here in the room? So if you're a parent, you've had this thought, maybe you've been afraid to express it, and it is this: our kids are not all right. They're not all right because we're leaving them a future that is far darker than the lives that we have led as their parents. We are going through the greatest economic transformation in our country's history, the fourth industrial revolution, and it is pushing more and more of our people to the side. We talk as if Donald Trump is the cause of all of our problems. He is not. He is a symptom, and we need to cure the disease. Now, my first move was not to run for president of the United States because I am not insane. My first move was to go to D.C., talk to our leaders and say, technology is ripping us apart, immigrants are being scapegoated, our kids are being left behind, and the American dream that my parents came here to find is dying before our eyes. And the people in Washington, D.C. had nothing for this. They don't want to touch it. They don't want to talk about an issue they don't think they have a solution for. I'm not running for president because I've fantasized about being president. I'm running for president because, like many of you here in this room tonight, I'm a parent and a patriot, and I have seen the future that we're leaving for our kids, and it is not something I'm willing to accept. We need to create a new way forward for our people. If you want to join us in rewriting the rules of the 21st century economy, go to yang2020.com and make it so that we can look our kids in the eyes and say to them, and believe it, your country loves you, your country values you, and you will be all right.
Thank you, Mr. Yang.
All right, so that was his closing statement. What do you think?
I think it was very intriguing. Like, I think that it was very nice and strong sentence. Like, I really was impressed.
Yeah, that was a great closing. I loved how he talked about his kids, and I loved how he ended it with this sort of like
Conclusion.
like, and the subtext was, I'm the leader. I'm going to make this country all right. Like, we're going to get through this. And it was strong, yet it was inclusive. It was approachable. It was warm.
Yeah.
Like, they did a good job with that closing.
Yeah.
That was solid. Yeah.
It's like, go to yang2020.com and look your kids in the eyes and say, your country needs you. Your country loves you.
Yes.
And like he's like has a really enthusiastic mood to fix what this world is now. Because if this world goes on, same presidents, same leaders.
I know. It's going to be terrible. Another 4 years of Trump. Can you imagine? I know. Seriously.
Yeah.
All right. So